Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up gay culture. Leather, consent, and a swastika. Is there a Nazi problem in kink culture? The International Mr. Leather competition is one of the most beloved gatherings for kinksters across the globe, a celebration of leather, love, and lifelong friendships. The world-class leather competition is underway in Chicago, but this year, the community is grappling with a disturbing controversy. Durk Dehner, a longtime fixture of IML and a co-founder of the Tom of Finland Foundation, was removed as a judge after images surfaced of him wearing Nazi regalia. The backlash was swift. Dehner stepped down from his role at the foundation which he co-founded in 1984 with Touko Laaksonen, the original Tom of Finland, and one of the most influential gay erotic artists in history. The foundation apologized, affirming it does not support hate in any form. Still, the damage was done. Pup-Diego Onyx, Mr. Bullet Leather 2024, and the first to post the images said, quote, "The first time I saw the photos a few years ago, they made me extremely uneasy and uncomfortable. I mentioned it to others in the Los Angeles leather scene, and most people brushed it off," end quote. But when he saw Dehner would be a judge at this year's IML, he decided to make a Facebook post, and when IML removed Dehner just 12 hours after the post, Ong said, quote, "For once, I felt like our voices were heard." The scandal that has forced many in the leather scene to ask hard questions. Tom of Finland's art is iconic, but Laaksonen's admitted some inspiration came from SS uniforms. What began as queer subversion of masculine power now walks the razor-thin line between fantasy and fascism. Patrice Stonebanks, a leather veteran and business leader, said, quote, "Consent is the ethical line," end quote. And Dehner crossed it, not just in what he wore, but in exposing others to painful imagery without consent. Queer News Tonight executive producer Al Ferguson spoke to a key leader of the Wilton Manor's leather community about views over fascist imagery. He spoke on the condition of anonymity, of confidentiality, saying, quote, "It is a dirty little secret. Like log cabin Republicans, there seems to be a contradiction with many in the gay community, support of fascist symbols and imagery. It's confusing. How can you be gay, celebrate who you are, then celebrate those that labeled us in World War II and put us in concentration camps," end quote. In the end, this moment may be a reckoning, not for the kink itself, but for how the community ensures its joy remains a refuge from the forces that once sought to erase it. You know, this has been a very hard story to look at. And, you know, I've struggled with issues of, one, there is this idea that, you know, a lot of gay men, especially white gay men, are or love Nazism, and a lot of Nazis were gay. And I always have to remind people that, like, a lot of straight historians are the ones that push that narrative, and it is a dirty history in this country of marginalized groups being alleged to be associated with inappropriate views. You know, how many times did we hear that the black community is homophobic? And I'm always like, that's the most racist statement I can think of, to just assume an entire community is homophobic. But at the same time, like, Dehner's imagery, he had a freaking swastika on his vest, and I'm like, what are you doing? But I think, you know, at the end of the day, Alexander Shaves of Out magazine put it best when he wrote in March, quote, "Tom of Finland did what many queer artists before and after him have done. He took an image of power, which were in his day militaristic men in uniforms, and queered them. In doing so, he subverted fascists. Subversion and glorification can look similar, but they are profoundly different." And I think that, hopefully, is what most of the kink community and leather community is about at the end of the day.
I mean, there's no escaping the fact that as someone who dabbled in that community, there's a sort of like we like the aesthetic of it. The leather, you know, the uniforms. I mean, uniform is one of the more popular kinks, from nurses' uniform to cops to whatever. So
clergy.
I try not to do that. I try not to think that I'm going to burn in hell while I'm doing it. But you know, the aesthetics is the point, not the. I mean, should Dehner be wearing what I assume to be like collected antiques from the 1940s and parade them around? No. I mean, for God's sake, have some self-awareness. You like to collect Nazi memorabilia? That's fine. Keep them at home, please.
Well, and it's, popular culture. You look at, some of the positive sensual imagery of Tom of Finland. Mm-hmm. But I agree, once you start popping swastikas in, it's in bad taste, especially when you think about how our community suffered along with many who perished during the Holocaust. I wanted to add too, you look at, okay, there's a fine line. There are times where I'm channel surfing saying, God, I'm paying over $300 a month for my cable, and Hogan's Heroes comes on, and you have to look at that late 1960s show, and it's a comedy about people in a POW camp run by
cartoonish Nazis.
Yes. So, again, I think it depends on the context you're looking at, but I think we have to be sensitive all around. I mean, there's hypocrisy in every community, and including ours. I think we just have to make good choices.
I think it's more jarring. I think part of it more jarring is that Dehner was, the co-founder of the Tom of Finland Foundation, yes, and the fact that he's such high profile in the leather community. If it was just a small creator somewhere else, we probably would have never paid it any notice. But the fact that it's one of the icons, like Tom of Finland basically inspired aesthetic of the leatherman out there. So for him to trot out this stuff, the memorabilia, that seems to be a little jarring.
And you look at historically in our society, and if anybody has one of these cars, please forgive me, because I love them. But you look at some of the beautiful European cars that are considered luxury cars, and I won't mention them by name, but there was a time during the war that they had people from the camps helping manufacture them as slave labor.
German, like yes, Volkswagen and a bunch of others were started during the German Nazi regime. Yes. So, we have to be careful about, are we going to say that those companies are no acceptable? But I go back to that subversion versus glorification. Yes. And I don't think the Nazi regime would like Tom of Finland's imagery.
I don't think so either.
Kids would be labeled degenerate art by that regime.
I want to add something to this. I know a bit of the history of IML, and it has grown and matured over time. It started as a bar contest. It started just as a bar contest to get people into a bar in Gold Coast on a slow day and grew into what it is now. I recall sitting in, I've been involved in IML for several decades, sitting in the lobby of the hotel, which Chuck runs though, saying, the old guard has changed. The younger kids are looking at things different than we did. How they respect people is different. Let them change. Let them take over now. At one point in time, the Nazi symbolism would have been perfectly respectable. Now, as we've grown and matured, it is not appropriate. I will be at IML this Sunday preaching at a service. A lot of other folk are very spiritual. I'm also involved with MCC besides Deacon Church. And I will address that issue of respecting each other and how we live with each other. IML has grown and matured, and this is an appropriate response to this.
I think that's also just a sign of the times, because, ever since 2017, let's just say, for obvious reasons, that, Nazi imagery has become more popular on the far right again. It is no longer parody. It is now literally, they are defining it. They're marching up and down the street. They're terrorizing black neighborhoods. And so it makes it much less acceptable for us to basically adopt the imagery.
I think my question with all of it is, there's the difference between the guys with the swastika, the clear Nazi imagery, and the leather uniform guys with the leather hat. It's semi-inspired from the masculine concepts of both Nazi Germany era, but also American World War II and Soviet Union. Are those the same in the same group as the clear Nazi? I would say the clear Nazi stuff is very different, but
the hyper masculine imagery in military uniform has been a standard throughout any kind of culture. I mean, yes, the Nazi used it, the Soviet Union used it. What do you think? What do you think when they put fatigues on Sylvester Stallone for True Blood or whatever that movie about redeeming Vietnam with AK-47s was? I mean, they are all basically hyper masculine imagery with a military uniform on, no matter what the flag is. Well, That is the big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.